Somebody asked me a while ago, they said, "Can you tell us a point in time where you failed?" And I
Mhm.
stuttered because I couldn't think of a time that I failed. It's not that I haven't had things that don't work. Jody, that happens every day. It's that what is your definition of failure? If you look at a point in time, you could say this failed. But if you look at a long enough timeline, as long as you keep moving, things work. In some way, shape, or form, they work as long as you don't stop. When we were selling Create and Cultivate, we went through 3 transactions before we actually sold it. The first one fell through. The second one fell through in November of 2020, COVID. We're in season of Delta in California and Los Angeles, and I was 32 weeks pregnant with my second child. I felt like I got sucker punched in the stomach while I was pregnant, and the second buyer backed out. We immediately went into a third process. I had my daughter on Christmas Eve of 2020, and we ended up closing the transaction in March of 21. When that second transaction fell through, Jody, I thought, this is it. It's not going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to manage all these different pieces. And it's just, this is it. And I felt, I'll never forget that feeling. I felt like I failed. I didn't just fail myself, I didn't fail my family. I also failed all the employees that we had at Create and Cultivate because they trusted me and they relied on me. And I told them I was working on things to get the company to a certain place. And they were working right along with me. They didn't know the details because they weren't involved necessarily in the day-to-days of the transaction, but I knew that they trusted me. The thing is, when we went through the third I didn't stop. I kept moving. And I think that's the biggest thing. I kept going. And we ended up closing the deal. And here's what's interesting, Jody. The third transaction with the party that we had ended up being the best one for the company. I didn't know it at the time. Now, in hindsight, it was the best move for the business. So while I felt like at that second transaction, the floor came out underneath me, I'm falling through, nothing is going to work. I'm about to give birth to my second child. We're going into the holidays. I don't know what's going to happen. It actually all worked out. What's an interesting concept is the concept of currency. You think of currency and money, and then you also think of currents like electricity. See, electricity as a current, it only exists in the world to the extent that it keeps moving, which is very similar. I'm a finance person, which is very similar to currency with money. If money doesn't move in the economy, the value becomes stagnant. That's what we call a stagnant economy. It's the same thing with electricity. So you think of a current of electricity. If it doesn't move, right, it ceases to exist, or it exists, ceases to exist isn't the best way to say it, but it now is in a different form than you would anticipate. It's the same thing with energy. When you keep moving and you stay in constant movement, it's so interesting how things can occur. So even Jody or any of your listeners, when you don't think things are going to work out, when you're sitting there saying everything is falling through, I've been there. Many of you have been there. Jody, you've been there. My advice is keep moving. Think of electric currents and how they keep moving to keep the energy going.